Good morning. Let's go ahead and call the Executive Committee meeting to order. Clerk, please take the roll.
Good morning. If you can please make the selections on your tablets. Chair, we have a quorum with 6 members present and 1 member absent.
Thank you. Let's move to non-agenda public comment. This provides 2 minutes for anybody who'd like to comment on something that is not on today's agenda, but is within the purview of the committee. Clerk, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
We have no public comments, Chair.
All right. Next is approval of the minutes of the May 14th, 2026 meeting of the Executive Committee. Clerk, do we have any public comment on the minutes?
We have no public comments, Chair.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. We have a motion from Vice Chair Goebel that I will second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, clerk, please take the vote.
Members, if you can please make the selections on your tablets. Chair, the motion passes with 6 members voting yes and 1 member absent.
All right, let's move on to our discussion items. Item 4 is an update on the Fare Freeze program, and we're going to get this presentation from Mark Olson and Israel Maldonado. Please feel free to get all set up and begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm Mark Olson, Director of Marketing and Communications, and joining me for this presentation is Israel Maldonado, who's the Director of Fare Technology and Operations. And we're going to be talking about the Pronto Low Income Fare Program, Pronto Life, and an update on that. So just a little bit of background. The board directed staff at its June 11th meeting to develop and implement a Fare Freeze program for eligible low-income riders that are enrolled in the following programs: CalFresh, Medi-Cal, and CalWorks. And the idea here is to maintain current fare levels for eligible participants should a fare change happen on October 1st. And this would limit eligibility to riders that are not already served through existing MTS reduced fare programs. So we made a lot of progress to date, which is really good. We coordinated with County Health and Human Services Administration regarding eligibility verification and data sharing requirements. We've defined some preliminary eligibility criteria and enrollment processes, and Israel will go through that a little bit. We've also developed some branding for this and rider communication plans, and completed initial enrollment and revenue impact estimates, and then also initiated legal review from our legal team for verification and data sharing procedures. And the target launch date for this is, if any fare changes happen, would be October 1st, 2026. So with that, I'll hand it over to Israel to talk through some of the back-end work that's been done on this program so far.
Great. Thanks, Mark. So the concept that we have on the table here for you for this Pronto Life program, individuals that currently qualify, that are recipients of the CalFresh, CalWorks, or Medi-Cal programs would qualify for this Life program. This Life program would in turn allow these customers access to frozen fares, which include the current adult one-way $2.50 fare when tapping with stored value, and inherently would allow them access to the $6 daily cap, the $72 monthly cap, and also the ability to buy the $72 monthly pass product if so desired. So how does the application process look like? Well, customers have a couple options to apply. They can apply in person at the MTS Transit Store, or they can also apply online through our successful reduced fare application portal at ridepronto.com. And how it works is the customer would submit the application, receive a temporary 30-day approval. And in the meantime, MTS would work with our partners, which I do want to send a shout out to Alberto Garcia and the HHSA team out there. They have done a great job of expediting collaboration with us. They would work with the Health and Human Services Agency to do a long-term validation within those 30 days, which in turn would allow our staff to provide a 1-year benefit for those customers. Some of the requirements for this application involve a current verification benefits letter provided by Health and Human Services, a government-issued photo ID, a profile photo, and a signed authorization for release of information that has to be submitted directly to Health and Human Services. This, of course, involves some expedited integration with our back office system. It involves coordination at all levels from our extended stakeholders, partners here with Human Health and Services to our core fare system vendor Init for back office modifications, Marathon, who is our RidePronto.com website subcontractor, our internal resources for MTS digital content developers, and coordination between the Pronto technical and our support services team to make all this happen quickly. So the next steps with this implementation, we have a concept in place. We're defining the scope so that we can begin technical modifications literally as soon as possible. This involves one of the outstanding items that we're working with our partners at HHSA is defining that mechanism for that secondary long-term validation that is efficient, that is secure, where we can provide our customers with that expedited resolution on the long-term benefit. And some of the challenges, any project has challenges, this one does too. It is an aggressive implementation timeline. There will be a cost to implement, which we're working with our vendors to draft that scope as we move quickly through that definition. There will be an increased administrative workload from our support services staff in applying that 30-day temporary eligibility and applying the long-term validation. And there are rule changes that we need to test in sandbox and in production. Just things like if North County Transit District is not part of the program, well, we need to ensure that those that do qualify for the LIFE program are charged appropriately when they're utilizing services that are not part of that offer. And for example, from a technical perspective, if a customer bought an adult product in the same month where they now transition to the LIFE program, we need to make sure that they're made whole, that they do not lose on any of the benefit that they gain throughout the month from the adult daily cap and such. And again, the goal is to implement this by September 20th before the October monthly pass sales. And of course, from a technical perspective, we want to have this in a sandbox and production environment testing way before that, so we can make it to that 20th mark.
Okay, and talking through some of the branding and launch plans. So with Pronto Life, this is the low income fare eligible program. We chose Life based on some research that we did with other agencies and their programs. This is a similar name that LA Metro has. And so we think that there's some pretty good synergy between Southern California agencies, and it just seemed to fit pretty well. So we're going with Pronto Life as a branding element to this. Some of the customer outreach that we're going to be doing on this will coincide with the outreach that we're doing for any type of fare changes, because we want to make sure that we are targeting riders who need to know about the fare changes, but then at the same time want to know about this LIFE program and might be eligible for it. So we're going to be doing both of those things at the same time through Pronto app notifications, rider communications, with our e-newsletter, which has 20,000 subscribers, website and digital channels, transit center outreach in person, on system advertising that we have available to us. We'll also be working closely with community-based organizations, and then local community publications are some of the things that we're going to be doing. But really the goal here obviously is to maximize awareness with eligible riders before that October 1st launch. Some of the cost and enrollment estimates we've come up with, this is based on a few different things, but certainly the population that are enrolled in these various benefits programs through the county, as well as information that we have through surveys on income levels of our riders and a few other things. But we think that there is a universe of about 34,000 pass holders that are eligible for this program. What we would see here in a phase one revenue reduction of $5.3 million that we wouldn't be able to realize through any kind of fare changes. With phase two, that would increase to $9.4 million in revenue projection decreases. So phase one, annual revenue estimated decreases, it would go from about $9 million that we were planning on collecting an additional revenue from the fare changes to $3.7 million. And then in phase two, that annual revenue estimate would go from $14 million down to $4.6 million. if these estimates hold up. But again, these are estimates. We say estimates 4 different times on this slide. So it is something that we really would need to see this program get rolled out and see what kind of response that we would get through it. So you've seen this pie chart many times, but this is our 4-year financial sustainability strategy and what we're looking at. And you can see here with moving some capital over to operations, using our reserves and SB 125 funds to extend this fiscal cliff out, as well as some miscellaneous operating funds as well. But you can see here, really this service cuts and unknown, that $60 million. So we're going to need to find about $15 million a year over the next 4 years to implement this financial sustainability strategy and push out this fiscal cliff to 2030. Now with the fare increases, if they were to take place on October 1st, we would start realizing about $20 million over the next 4 years to help with this financial sustainability strategy. So you can see it definitely has an impact. We just don't know where we're going to get that money from. Certainly service cuts, service changes on some core services may need to happen. But that is something that, we just wanted to make sure that the board, this was visible in front of the board. So it does impact our ability here, introducing this type of program. And, again, this is something that, is something that we'll need to come back to the board with some decision making on how we're going to bridge this gap and keep this financial cliff pushed out to 2030 with this financial sustainability strategy. So with that, we can open it up for questions and comments from committee members.
Thank you. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, we do, Chair. Aria Grossman, if you can please unmute yourself.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Aria Grossman, and I'm the policy manager at Circulate Planning and Policy. And I just wanted to say that I think, before final decisions are made and the program is implemented, I really think people need to know how this is going to affect service. The revenue loss is going to be really significant, and it will have to lead to service cutbacks. And the reality is that riders, including low-income riders, do care about more than just the cost to ride. People really depend on reliable and frequent service. And it's really easy for people to prefer cheaper fares because the choice is in front of them, right? It's the price difference is clear. But people don't yet know what the service cuts due to the reduced revenue might look like. And I think people just have to know. So I'd urge you to further model potential cuts to give public a sense of how our bus and trolley schedules might change as soon as possible. This is just really important as the public information. This is just as important as the public information campaigns that we do when fares increase. Thank you.
That concludes public comments, Chair.
Thank you. Let's open committee member discussion on this item. It's an informational item, so no motion is necessary. And we'll begin with Director Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start by saying thank you for the work that's been put into this in a very tight timeline. I know that this is a lot of work. I do want to, well, first, I appreciate the collaboration with the county. I think that that's important. And just to make sure I'm understanding, the goal here is to ultimately end up in a place where through the consent forms and the collaboration with the county, we're kind of streamlining the ability to verify and not adding additional hurdles. Is that correct?
That's correct. And, the proof of window put in with this phase one, I like to use the phase approach. Phase one, given the time constraints, we'll know how the volume's coming in, if the process, there's, recommendations for more efficiency, and we can build those into a phase two to iterate and keep polishing the solution. Given the time constraint where we are today, I'm confident the concept as outlined will be fairly efficient.
Efficient for, there's like efficient for the agency, there's efficient for the riders, there's efficient for.
Well, it's very much modeled on what we did with the Youth Opportunity Pass and what we do with the SDM SDM lower pass price.
Right. Yeah,
program.
we thought it looked very similar to the Youth Opportunity Pass. To that end, what lessons learned from the Youth Opportunity Pass re-enrollment conversation were incorporated into what we see in front of us in terms of the plan?
So this verification is actually more complex than the youth because the youth just had to do a step. So what we tried doing to maintain that efficiency was to leverage the same mechanisms that we're utilizing for the online reduced fare portal, which are proven. They are very swift. For example, most of the resolutions, whether from an automated response or from a manual review case, happen within 3 calendar days, not even business days, even today. So we expect to maintain some level of that, keeping in mind that now we have a second step for the long-term verification, which is why we're giving that 30-day temporary verification upon the first submittal, so that it buys us that 10 days, 15 days to work with HSA to have an efficient process to verify for the long-term qualifier.
And I also know in talking with the county staff that administers these 3 programs, they said that it's very easy for somebody to get their verification letter, which then they can upload and get their temporary 30-day. And they also indicated that 30 days is plenty of time for them to solidify the permanent verification.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that. I did want to talk a little bit about the estimates for the impact here. We can go back to those slides. So this is interesting to me. We approved a budget that did not include a fare increase, correct? So based on the budget we approved, I don't understand how this is a reduction in projected revenue.
So it's a reduction in the projected revenue for the fare study.
Okay.
And so that was something that when we originally started building the budget, it was taken out. That projected revenue was taken out of our budget. But we were also instructed, once the decision on the fares was to come in, we're to come back to the board in the fall to give an amended budget.
Correct. So that's how I understood it as well. But what I have concerns about, and what we're already hearing, is riders and advocates, and I'll be honest, I'm pretty disappointed in a couple of the comments that I've heard, placing blame on low-income riders for a potential reduction in service. And I have a problem with that for a couple of reasons. One, it assumes that there will not be any additional non-fare revenue, which other board members and I have been unequivocal is an absolute expectation. Two, I could flip this around very easily and say, this is why we said we are raising fares on the backs of low-income riders. So I just want us to be very thoughtful about how we present this. There's another factor that's missing from the projections. We assumed a certain fall off in revenue because of a reduction in people who could afford to pay for a pass. There was some modeling built in that said a certain number of our riders will no longer be able to afford to ride either at all or at the rate that they ride now. And we're not including that here, the folks who will stay in the system. So and I'm not saying this was said here, but it's quickly being said outside this space, that all MTS riders are going to receive less service because our lowest income riders are going to continue to pay what they pay today, not get a free ride, not get an additional discount from what they're paying today, simply continue paying what they're paying. I think is very unfair to those lower income riders who depend on our system, who are the lifeblood of our system, and is an example of the lack of creativity that is part of the reason why we are where we are. There are the global factors that are impacting all transit agencies. And so long as we look to our riders in such a narrow way, we're going to continue to find ourselves in situations like this. So I'm just going to reiterate this point here, that the communication about this should be one about making sure that folks know that the program exists, that there is an accessible way to enroll in it. This is an effort by MTS to maintain ridership. It's my intent for this to maintain services, and we can continue to pursue that if we do that through non-fare revenue. The last thing I had was a question. The passes won't be different, correct? It'll still just be a regular Pronto card?
Correct. It'll utilize the system. The actual product, when it validates on the information window, it'll say life program or life pass, life deduction.
But the card itself?
No, it's the same card.
Okay.
Or the same app.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not stigmatizing folks who have low income pop up. You know, they have to take out their card that says low income when they tap. Again, I recognize this is less money than we want from fare increases, but it is more money than we've currently budgeted for, and these folks are still going to be paying exactly what they're paying today, and let's not scapegoat them for a federal and statewide failure to invest in public transportation and this region's inability and quite frankly, lack of interest in pursuing other sources of revenue for the transit system beyond just the fares that riders pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ela Rivera. Director Moreno.
Thank you for the presentation, and also thank you for the quick turnaround on this. I also want to acknowledge Board Member Sean Ela Rivera and his staff for proposing the Fare Freeze program to help the sport think of solutions that are transit related for low income riders. Now, in decision making, numbers play such an important role in the cost benefit analysis. The staff presentation referenced 34,000 eligible transit pass holders that would potentially benefit from a fare freeze program. I would like to understand more about eligible transit pass holders and the figure that was presented here. Can you explain how MTS staff arrived at this estimate?
Sure. I can walk us through the assumptions for this. And the goal of this estimate was to identify, get a semblance of what the impact may be, also from a technical perspective, so that we can scale up appropriately. But the assumptions are as follows. We identified the numbers from just readily available online information of CalFresh, CalWorks, and Medi-Cal online, CalFresh, CalWorks, and Medi-Cal participants. The populations were then segmented to remove individuals that are likely to be children or seniors age 65 and over, since those groups would already qualify for another benefit within MTS. Then from that adult base, staff removed the likely to be disabled adults that already likely qualify under SDM eligibility. And for the remaining base of that number, staff assumed only about 7% of that population would actually be likely to ride transit. Staff also accounted for an overlap in the population of participants that already qualify for multiple programs to ensure that we didn't have an overlap in there. And so for a conservative analysis and also with the constraints of the project, we simply applied that differential between the increased monthly pass product to the current fare. And that's how we ended up with the estimates for the revenue side and also for the 34,000.
Thank you for explaining that. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp and her staff for helping out with this. When I saw that 34,000 number, I questioned whether there was any overlap whatsoever in the numbers. And I understand the complexity of what we're working with here. And you're saying that there are no overlaps.
It's an estimate. So we attempted to take out those overlaps, but it is an estimate. I think ideally we would have loved to have a more exhaustive analysis to take additional factors into consideration, but just with the time constraints, it was impossible.
Got you. Yeah. I was wondering how you arrived at the program cost for phase 1 and 2, but obviously that 34,000 number is just, it's such an important number when we're doing a cost analysis, and obviously numbers need to be substantiated. Would you have time to substantiate the numbers by October, or is it too short of a time frame?
We certainly can, and we can obviously work with our finance team to give a lot of the background. Again, this was more from a technical perspective to really understand how we needed to scale up our solution, but we can, of course, give you some more definition of those numbers.
Because I wonder how many of those 34 already are, pass holders right now. So that would deviate that number substantially. So yeah, if we could dig in a little bit more on those numbers.
Actually, that's based on actual current pass holders. 34,000 of our current pass holders, we believe, would be eligible for the program and would likely use it.
That are enrolled in SNAP.
That are
And the
enrolled in
other
the
two-
three
in the three.
programs. Yeah.
Okay.
An estimate, right? An estimate. We
yeah.
don't have a one-to-one relationship
No.
on both data sets.
Yeah.
Until we actually see how people use the program, we
Mhm.
won't be able to give you anything more firm than that.
Yeah, and we're not estimating the folks that we are not capturing that potentially can become riders, right? That's the other factor that obviously that's a really difficult number to analyze, but nonetheless, it is still a number. I will share with you that I think at least for me, I think the board would have benefited from understanding how these estimates and projections were achieved in the board material and the presentation. Also, obviously, for the general public. But moving along within the staff presentation, I also noticed the process on slide 5 and the requirements that need to be presented, such as verification benefit letters, a government issued photo identification, an authorization to release information, and a profile photo. And you hit on this a little bit, but can you share your plan to ease that administrative burden for writers through the application process? And let me preface this by saying that when I was a new MTS board member, I took my niece to get a youth opportunity pass. We went to Big Ben. I went to Big Ben in National City to get her the youth opportunity pass because that was one of the locations in the South Bay. Unbeknownst to me, she had to be present and she had to have an ID. And I could tell you, I'm a really good tia, but a lot of folks, they cannot do that. That is just, it's just adding so many burdens to a person that is, it's difficult. It's difficult for me as a professional to even get to the grocery store, right? So I'm thinking of the people that I represent, right? My mom worked 12 hours a day on any given day. When I was young, she probably wouldn't have been able to take me to Big Ben to get a pass. So I want to know what the plan is to administratively to ease the burden for our future riders.
So how the environment has changed from that example that you provided, now we have this very robust online platform where customers don't have to be there in person, where they can do this online. And the process, the website has been extremely efficient just based on the numbers that we've seen over the years. Another option is in person, because some may not have access to internet. They may need to come in person to the transit store, and they can be supported in person there.
Only at the transit, sorry to interrupt you, but is this only at the transit store?
Yes, only at the transit store, because that's where the systems live, the point of sales, the mechanisms to be able to put them into the system. But of course, we also have that online platform that is very efficient. Versus before, where you had to take your ID to the retail to show and get a specific card that was just specific to that rider class. Now the cards, for the point that Member Rivera mentioned, the cards are generic and the account type lives in the cloud. So it doesn't have to say low income, it could just be general. So the current mechanism that we want to leverage with the online portal is very efficient today.
And we also have a robust call center. So if somebody were having a challenge, they could get help with that. But what you're seeing here is things that those individuals already have to offer in order to qualify for the other programs in the county. So it's not an unusual thing for them to already possess the needed documentation.
Well, then I would emphasize not only for the LIFE program, but just in general, easing that administrative burden for applying to any of our Pronto cards, I think should be paramount for this agency. And I would like to see how we could make it a little bit more accessible to folks. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm sure you guys could figure something out. And I think that the issue here is that administrative burdens can make it difficult for riders to access programs for which they're obviously eligible for. And these burdens are magnified for people who are digitally disconnected, struggle to navigate complex systems, or have limited English proficiency. I don't think I'd want to send my niece to the transit store, to be honest with you, by herself. So that's another factor to consider. And then also funding was can you pull up the funding? If we could just look at that. At MTS, at SANDAG recently, it was shared with us that we actually received more funding from FTA. I think it was about $8 to $9 million that was presented. I understand that FTA could probably be limited in its scope of what we could use it for. Mainly, I'm assuming, this is a huge assumption, capital improvement projects, but we've already moved money around in the last budget from $50 million from our capital program to operations. So I would say that we do have money coming in. I think the numbers were shown at the last SANDAG meeting, and tomorrow at transportation, they're going to be presenting at SANDAG. So I just wanted to put that on the record so folks know that that funding is coming along. So once again, thank you for the quick turnaround. I too share with board member Elo Rivera, I don't know what title to use for you, that this is certainly, this was a quick turnaround, but it didn't have to be. Can I put that out there? We had been asking for different ways to think about how riders ride MTS. So once again, thank you, Elo Rivera, and your staff for bringing this forward as a possibility. And thank you for the quick turnaround. And I look forward to seeing this come to fruition. And I kind of like the name LIFE. I just want to put that out there. Whomever came up with this, I think they're in marketing is doing a fantastic job. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Moreno. Let's go back to Director Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that Vice Chair Goebel was also on the lights. If he wants to go first, since I already had a chance to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to Vice Chair Goebel.
Sounds good. All right, thank you. A couple of questions. Do we have any estimates on the cost that the vendor will charge for converting the system, and any estimates on annual administrative costs? Will it require additional positions?
We don't yet, but we will very soon. We're in parallel defining the scope and making sure that we account for as much as possible. And also, credit to my team. They've done such a good job of managing the system that we built a little bit of a on-call hour balance so that we're trying to use those first and then any excess come to the board for approval if necessary.
But you'll have some numbers later on.
Yes.
Future. Okay, great.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yeah.
My final question is to reach 34,000 people, and I'll give you credit. Slide 9, it said 6 times, not 4 times. And I've heard you say the word estimate probably verbally 34 times so far. So I know 34,000 is an estimate. There's the 35th time. To reach all those people by October 1st would be Herculean effort to do so. And not everybody will be reached. And when October 1st comes, assuming the Transportation Committee approves a fare increase, they would be paying the higher fares as of that date. When they qualify at a future date, will they get credit for the higher rates paid, or is it that's just a...
Typically, we do have mechanisms to be able to either make the customer whole through either goodwill or some sort of pass type. And depending on the policy that the board wants to implement, of course, we have the mechanisms to do that.
I was just going to say that when you talk about the scope of this, we did prop up the Youth Opportunity Pass very quickly with the online portal, and that was a Herculean effort as well. But we've learned from it, and we know that we could probably accommodate the numbers if they're around the ballpark of what we're talking about. So we do think we could be able to accomplish that. The other thing is we have the county as a partner, and they're going to be making sure that the members of that group that are in those 3 programs are going to also have knowledge that this is a benefit that they could get. And the fact that it is an online portal, and we're also going to automatically say, yes, we're giving you your temporary 30 days. It should be seamless for people as they're doing this. But again, lessons learned will change the program as we try to figure out how to better accommodate the group of people.
All right. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Goebel. Let's go back to Director Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Moreno for the board member Moreno. It's like, it's a habit. For the questions that she asked. Thank you, Vice Chair Goebel, as well. Our understanding was that there had been at least some discussion with the county about the ability of applicants to use their benefits cards. So that would be an EBT card, a BIC card, or a Cal SAWS card, or document along with their ID.
Now, the verification letter is very easy to get, and it's actually specific to people who are already currently enrolled in the programs. I can tell you, I have EBT cards for my kids because they were giving them out, and I could easily use that to qualify them for a program. And I think that was a recognition from the HHSA staff that, yes, there's a lot of that out there where there's cards that are in the community that
I'm trying to remember. There isn't an expiration date on those cards, correct? Or
not the ones I have, but
yeah.
And also another advantage to using the verification letter is that there's a case number that is benign, meaning it doesn't involve PII. So we're able to then work with HHSA to use that as the way of a mechanism to verify for the long term with that case number.
Okay, thank you. Do you all, does the staff recall the estimated amount that what we projected for the fall off in revenue with the fare increase?
We were looking at an increase in revenue, not a fall
Right,
off
but there
in
was a
revenue.
certain projected fall off as well from those who could no longer. There was a
due to
number.
the
From
ridership
riders.
decline.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I want to say it was 2 to 3% of ridership loss.
I would appreciate the next time that we put the numbers up, that we account for that not happening. Because my assumption is if we assume that's going to happen with the fare increase, but without the program. We would say that it's not going to happen if we have the program, and to not put that in, include that in the picture, again, is not the full picture, but it also puts these lower income riders in a situation where they're potentially being blamed for a reduction in service that's not their fault. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Ela Rivera. All right, seeing no further committee member comment, there's no motion required on this. This was an informational item. Thank you very much again for bringing this information to us today. All right, let's move on to item number 5, and that is the proposed ad hoc advocacy committee. Julia Tuer is going to provide the presentation on this item, so feel free to get set up and begin whenever you're ready.
All right. Good morning. So this item is being brought forward today in response to board member interest in establishing an ad hoc advocacy committee. So I'll go through the structure of the committee and seek feedback at the end. So the committee would include up to 7 members representing board leadership and then key jurisdictions. Membership may be fewer than 7 if leadership also represented one of the listed jurisdictions here. Because it is intended to be a short-term, non-policy making committee with no fixed meeting schedule, it would qualify as an ad hoc committee and would not be subject to the Brown Act. So the primary purpose is to really coordinate a framework for board advocacy on legislative or regulatory issues in support of MTS priorities, with a particular focus on securing long-term sustainable funding. And then lastly here, meetings would occur on a tentative monthly basis or as needed, and they could take place in person, virtually, or in a hybrid format. So really with that, that includes our proposed structure of the committee. And so what we'd like today is to have a bit of direction or feedback on this proposed ad hoc advocacy committee. And then we'd likely bring this back at the July 30th board meeting for final approval and then membership selection.
Thank you. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comments, Chair.
All right, we'll begin committee member discussion on this item, and we'll start our conversation with Director Moreno.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the urgency behind this presentation. My comments in June on stronger strategy, I think, seem to have missed the mark. An ad hoc advocacy committee, I think, is slowing down progress, is what I will say, to not say in my opinion, a meaner word. This would default to the routine of meeting and committee when that was not at all the intention of my comments, at least in June. I think meaningful engagement and strategy from our board chair and vice chair, along with our CEO's direction, can be more fitting and impactful. So if you want me to outline what I think should happen, I'll give it a try. We have several capital improvement projects that are in the books right now. Those capital improvement projects, I think, should be looked at having a life for the next 5 years. So in the next 5 years, what do we want to see come to fruition? We have 2 items after this one that seem to be ready to, they're on second base. We want to get them to home. So that would be something that I would bring up as the chair, as the CEO, to our delegation here in the state of California, so they could start thinking about what the legislative platform is going to be for 27, or at this point, 28, 29, 30, so that we could offset some of our capital improvement funds that we have. We have about 300 million in our capital improvement funds for, Mike, what is it for? I'm sorry, it's for our green integration into the state of California, right? What is that called? Yeah. ZEB? I keep on thinking ZEB. Is it ZEB?
Yes,
Okay.
zero emission policy.
Our zero emission effort has about $300 million right now in capital improvement projects, might have less. We took 50, so it might be 250 right now.
Yeah, that's money that's been committed to those projects. So it's in the process of being
1000%.
spent. So it's not available money.
1000%. Thank you
Okay.
for making my argument even stronger, because our assembly members, our senators should know what's coming down the pipeline, right? We should say, hey, we have earmarked money. We have $50 million for whatever project. We're going to need 10 million, 5 million for 28, for 29, and for 30. That will offset our budget, because then we will not have to put so much money in our capital improvement projects. Or when we get 125 money, a big chunk of that money will not have to go into capital improvement projects. So that's
Board Member Moreno. I just wanted to let you know that this wasn't Julia's idea.
I'm not saying it is, but she's asking.
This was
for-
actually brought up by a couple other board
Okay.
members. And so we wanted to bring it to the committee for discussion, not necessarily saying it has to look like this.
So I'm
but the
just,
kind of advocacy you're talking about, we already are engaged
I am
in.
discussing, that's what I'm discussing then, right? Because I've talked to our assembly members and they've told me that they haven't had any communication. That's
Well,
as of last
I
week.
was on a
That's as
Zoom
of last
meeting with
week.
David Alvarez.
Yeah, that was
yesterday.
yesterday. And we've been asking for this for the
He's
past
carrying a
5
bill
years.
for us.
Thank you. So you asked, right? Did you ask, Chair? Was this not on the agenda today to ask for my input on what I think about the ad hoc committee?
We absolutely welcome your input, of course.
So that is the input I'm giving. If that is happening, my second point is that this board doesn't know. This board doesn't know what projects are coming down the pipeline. This board doesn't know that we need $10 million from Congressman Peters in 2030. So that, I think, is one way where if it's already happening, once again, we don't know about this. And that was my second point, is that the communication, I think, just needs to be a little bit more, there needs to be a two-way communication. I don't think bureaucratizing what we're asking for is the answer. I don't need an ad hoc committee. I don't need it. So I am actually going to say for the record that I don't think an ad hoc committee, I don't remember any of my co-board members asking for that, but potentially, I'm not saying that they didn't. I just want to put on the record that I did not ask for that. And I don't think it's a good idea. If the advocacy work, and I will also put for the record, we had Ward propose legislation this year that I think maybe the chair's staff knew about, but nobody else knew about. And we were not informed of this. So I think that area just needs to be tightened up more communication needs to be had. And also we need to be asking our federal legislators for more earmarks for money. The Northeast does it all the time. They get heavily subsidized. So that would be my response to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Moreno. Your point is well taken. I do think that I can do a better job of communicating some of the advocacy efforts that I'm aware of that are going on, and we'll make an effort to do that going forward. I've had meetings with Assemblymember Ward and Assemblymember Berner, and obviously went up to, well, not obviously, but went up to Sacramento for a hearing with Assemblymember Alvarez. So I will try to remember to communicate that at these meetings. We also do have advocates in Sacramento, but I don't know that we hear from them at these meetings and on a regular basis. We have in the past, but I think perhaps some more robust communication, hearing from them, or at least getting updates on what they're doing, would be valuable. Obviously, there's interest in among board members in hearing that. As I recall, it was Director Montgomery Stepp who suggested at one point that she thought that there might be a greater role for all members of the board to be using their relationships among other elected officials to try to advocate on behalf of the agency. And I think that conversation sort of involved in creating a structure where that could be formalized in some way. But both things can happen, or we can simply do the communication route, certainly up to the board. Let's go to Director Ela Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks. I appreciate the conversation that's happening here. The only thing that I would add is, in addition to the additional communication at meetings, I think there's also opportunities in between meetings, whether that's sharing out in a similar way to when we get public safety updates. If and when legislation that is either being pushed by MTS or that would be impactful to MTS, when that's moving through committees, solves a committee, that could be valuable so that we can all kind of keep a pulse on it. And then for whatever it's worth, I also think that this would make pre-board meeting briefings that much more valuable. I'm not sure that those happen with the regularity that I think would be most beneficial. So 2 additional opportunities, both to hear what's happening, but also provide feedback on what's happening. With that comes the ability for all of us as board members to leverage our relationships. If any of us happen to be seen an assembly member or state senator in the course of our work, happens to be going up to Sacramento for other things, we can build that in. So I think the thing that I'm seeing missing is kind of leveraging the collective knowledge, experience, relationships, et cetera, of the board to help advance the legislative agenda and it's at the state and federal level of this body. And so, we a bunch of elected officials on this board that I think work hard to maintain relationships with other elected officials up and down the ladder, and to not leverage that is not in the best interest of the agency. So thank you, Chair.
If I might, then I could use some direction, because I've sent out a couple recent emails to the board asking for assistance in advocating. And I only heard back from 2 board members. Are emails not the appropriate way to communicate information and requests?
I did see that email, and I did think that was responsive to some of the comments that we've heard here at the board previously, and appreciated you sending that out and seeking board member participation and reaching out to some of our legislators. And I don't know that there is, it's emails, and then I think I will try to make it a point to work with you and communicate at these meetings. Also, some of the opportunities and requests that we have for board member engagement with our legislators. Let's go to Vice Chair Goebel.
Thank you, Chair. In general, I'm just aware of the cost of meetings. And anytime you put together a group, look at the payroll in this room right now. It's a costly meeting. So you hope to get value out of that. And so to create another committee means, boy, we better really get something out of, because all of you could be doing something else instead of this meeting, for instance. So we have to provide direction. That's the value of this meeting. I'm reluctant to create another committee. I think it's communication rather than policy, in a sense. We've had state and federal public relations or policy advocate firms here present to us maybe once a year, which is good. I'd suggest a quarterly legislative update as part of the consent calendar. I think that's a great place to park it, that it can be there for everybody to see. Quarterly seems good as far as that kind of thing. I don't think it needs to be more frequent. To Member Moreno's, I think what I'm hearing is you're saying, I just don't know what we're doing all the time. And are we contacting this person? Are we getting this in front of that person? Maybe we are, and we just don't know it. And so I think the first step is to say, let's establish a structure of communication rather than informal. I took a trip here. We went and saw this here. Those certainly help. But I think to answer your question or concern about, are we getting in front of the right people? We would know in a quarterly report, something's missing or something's being addressed. And we could bring that up. So I would make that a suggestion. I am aware of some of the things that the CEO has done as far as her leadership on the State Transit Operators Association or whatever that's called. And I think the chair has even been to Sacramento. I've seen some pictures in the monthly ridership newsletter, I think it was. So it's out there. I'd suggest a quarterly update on the consent agenda where people can see all of our efforts for the past 3 months. And then we would know something's missing or something's been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goebel. Let's go to Director Dillard.
I just want to say in regards to your comments, Chair, I'm, in communications with both our Assembly member, Dr. Lachey Sharp Collins, as well as our Senator, Dr. Akilah Weber Pearson. And I think that a great place for me, if I were going to help, is to communicate with the Assembly member. And I'm happy to do that. I just have to have specifics, an outline for her so that she can communicate effectively on what she may be able to do. And she has aides in the field as well as in Sacramento. So all I'm saying is that I'm happy to put something forward to her, and again, it's all about relationships. We have to have, an open communication, with the people that are able to write bills and push initiatives that are in support of MTS. And I think that it is important that we have these relationships with these people that can actually help us. But I think that we haven't really had a robust conversation as to specifically what it is that we would need to say or direction on, okay, here's, what you could send over as a request, specifically what it is that we would like for them to do, or if they needed to write a bill. So that's all I have to say about this item. And I agree with my colleagues that an ad hoc at this point, obviously it's not going to be convenient for me at all. And in addition to that, I don't think it gets to what we just talked about.
Thank you, Director Dillard. All right, very good feedback there. Nobody is clamoring for another meeting, so we will forego setting up an ad hoc committee. But here's what I would request, Ms. Tuer, because obviously the board and the committee are interested in, I think, additional engagement and additional communication. Why don't we see, or I'll ask you, would it be possible to get quarterly updates from our team in Sacramento so that we are aware of what they are working on and they can inform us? You're nodding, so it sounds like that's something we can do.
Yes, we could do that. And we can also have our federal lobbyists provide written summary updates as well. They provide those to us on a weekly basis.
Okay, so let's do that and make sure that the board is getting that, not just in the consent package, but also reports at a quarterly meeting or something like that so that it's coming through. The second thing that I would request, there's not a desire for an ad hoc committee. but that we do know that there are board members who are interested and willing to engage with elected officials, Director Dillard, myself, Director Elo Rivera. I mean, I'm sure there's a number on the board. So at our next board meeting or another upcoming board meeting where it's convenient, could we ask board members essentially to volunteer if they would like to be part of, it doesn't have to be an ad hoc committee, but it could be a group that you reach out to in your capacity when there are things that they can communicate with their elected official representatives in Sacramento. You can let them know about that. For instance, specifically what Director Dillard was just talking about. And then lastly, why don't we just make it, I mean, there are certain things that we have gotten in the habit of making it a point to bring to the board on a regular basis because the board has expressed interest in staying on top of those. And let's prioritize this.
Chair, if I
Yes.
may, I'm happy, my staff is going to kill me, but I'm happy to come up with a strategic engagement plan that we could do, where we can engage state and federal elected officials. I'll go ahead and look at what other agencies are doing. And I would ask staff to give me maybe the top 5 projects that are coming down the pipeline in the next 5 years. And then I could look at where we can get funding. And that could be the focus, right? That could be our focus. And I'm happy to start the conversation where it's not going to take any staff time, where I will bring something forward and then we could butcher that up and then move from there.
Thank you. I think that'd be useful. All right. Thank you, Director Moreno.
I just wanted to add, I guess, as the board thinks about this issue, I think that, one of staff's goals or understanding of trying to respond to the feedback we've gotten from board members about advocacy was urging us that you as board members have relationships and you have expertise and to please use it. And so while I completely understand the desire for more communication from our side, at the starting point, it's one-way communication where we're communicating with you, but how do we make sure that we get feedback back from you? Because that was the gap that I think that Supervisor Montgomery Stepp had mentioned at a prior meeting. And so we just want to make sure that we absolutely will give you as much information, but looking for opportunities or how can we get that strategic feedback from you all? So not just volunteering of, yes, I can go talk to that person, but if you see the communications we get. And so we can do that on an individual basis, but that's would just be kind of to help us respond to the feedback we're getting and, capitalize on the expertise that you all and the relationships you have. How do we facilitate that feedback from you back to us?
If I may answer, I think a strategy would work so that if we know that in 2 years, we're going to ask a certain congressperson to fund downtown layover project, then I'm not being asked at the last minute to sign a letter in support, which I do, which our staff does, but not all of us have 10 staff members on this board, right? So I think that's where a strategic plan will come in so that we see what's coming down the pipeline. There will be no emergencies, or unless there is an emergency, on the requests that we make. And all of our legislators will know that MTS, we're focused on the downtown layover project, if that is the focus, if that is where our earmarked funding is. So I think the strategic plan will come to, I think it will answer a lot of the questions, because I don't think it's just communication. I think it's a lot more than that. Is communication a part of it? Absolutely it is. But I think we need to have a little bit more strategy, and I'm happy to come up with the strategy, like I said, and then we could dissect it. Happy to share it with you before the board as well, so you could make sure we're squeaky clean.
Thank you, Director Moreno. Let's go to Director Fernandez, and then we'll go to Director Elo Rivera.
Thank you. I want to talk about the email communications for just a quick second. So there were 2 emails that came out. One was an update. One was a call to action. I really appreciate the call to action. I was probably one of the people that didn't get back to you, only because when we're going out and lobbying these folks up the ladder, it's really about relationships. And the assembly members and senators that were listed, I don't personally have a relationship with them. And to speak more about a strategic plan. That email was about tier 3 programs and funding that was at risk. But to speak to the plan, well, what projects should be prioritized within that funding to help me lobby that person if I do have a relationship with them? I need more direction when it comes to what am I going to say to this person? What's my ask? So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you for stepping up, Director Moreno.
Thank you, Director Fernandez. Let's go to Director Ela Rivera.
Thank you. To the idea of having a plan, I think that's a great idea, because built into the board creating a plan is not just feedback, but input. And this is something that we talk about at the city a lot and is really important to me. And that's the board having an opportunity to provide information on the front end. And there's value to that for multiple reasons. One, just think it's appropriate for us to help shape things from the jump. Two, it gives us better understanding and context, to Councilmember Moreno's point, when the call for action comes, how this fits into a larger strategy. And that strategy being one that was developed in partnership. So I think that would be very helpful. And again, the more conversation that happens on the front end, the more that conversation is tethered to a broader strategy, the more likely it is that we don't get to a place where there's miscommunication or a lack of understanding about what the board is expecting and how we can actually be valuable. Because, I think if we're doing this as a team, then there's opportunities for, if I know one of the legislators that's being asked for support, I might be able to loop in Board Member Fernandez into that conversation, so that there's an opportunity for him to develop that relationship in the context of his MTS partnership. So anyways, to Councilmember Moreno's point, that all starts with strategy. And I think the input piece from the board is critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ela Rivera. Let's go back to Director Dillard.
Yeah, thank you for all the comments here. I think this is really helpful for us. And I really do like Director Moreno's suggestion about having a strategy. And this was leading up to what I was saying prior to this. For example, I have a meeting with our Congresswoman, Sarah Jacobs, next month. And I would love to be able to have something. And by the way, I don't have a staff. I don't have any aides. I do use my city manager and the city council, but I don't have anyone to myself. But I would like to have something to present to Sarah. I already have things that I'm going to be presenting to her just out of my city, things that we would like to have. And I would be happy to bring something on behalf of MTS, some items that I could ask her to at least support, and have her give me information on how we can make things happen. So again, it's all about relationships. I think everybody understands that. It's something that I automatically do, and I'm happy to loop in anyone who would like to, be introduced or whatever to the people that I'm familiar with. And I think that it should be a networking process. This is a holistic company, right? Everyone here is representing a different district or a different city, but we need to be working together holistically because it benefits us all. And I'm happy to participate in that. And this is the first time that, I see an opportunity to further work with my colleagues. So thank you, Chair.
And we'll get you some information for that meeting with Congresswoman Jacob. She called me to inform me that she was going to carry forward one of our earmarks. So we'll make sure you have that information so you can thank her.
Very good. Good discussion. Thank you, everybody. So we'll forego the committee. Director Moreno is going to bring forward some thoughts on strategy. We will get more updates from our teams in Sacramento and Washington. Engage board members who are interested in reaching out to their legislative colleagues, and we'll do everything we can to keep the board abreast of all of those activities. All right, that wraps up item number 5. Let's move on to item number 6, which is an informational item on the downtown layover project. Brent Boyd is going to lead off our presentation. Feel free to get set up and begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay, good morning. Brent Boyd, Director of Planning and Scheduling with MTS. I'm here with a few SANDAG colleagues. Omar Atayee, who's Principal Engineer, Rick Brill, Capital Development Project Manager, and David Cortez is in the audience. He's the Director of Engineering and Construction. We're here to provide an update on the downtown bus layover project. This is an important project to both MTS and SANDAG. We've provided a number of updates to the board, and this is the most recent one. Ultimately, it's going to be a full block project with potential TOD and that type of thing. But at this point, we're working on developing an interim plan where we could start using the property that SANDAG owns currently and start using it as an interim bus layover facility. I'm going to introduce the project, and then Omar will talk about some of the details of the current effort. So the overall need for the downtown layover facility is really twofold. We have buses coming in from all over the region, from the north, the south, the east, into downtown, coming westbound on Broadway for the most part, and then they end their trip in the Santa Fe Depot area or somewhere western downtown. And when they do that, they need some time. The buses need a place to sit for a while, and the operators need time for a break, to use the restroom, use their mandated break, that type of thing. And then also we have what's called layover time at the end of the routes. So the buses, if they're coming in a little bit late from their inbound trip, they have time to recover in the schedule and depart their outbound trip on time. So they may be sitting on curbside blocks for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and so on. And we have those locations all over downtown. I'll show you a map of those in a second. So one of the benefits of this project would be consolidating those operations into one location and opening up curbside space for better uses than a bus sitting there for 15, 20 minutes. The second benefit of the project is operator safety and just quality of life. Right now, they have layover spots all over downtown. We have portable restrooms that are in the temporary location or the location of this downtown layover spot. They may have to walk 2 or 3 blocks to access these restrooms at any time of day or night. We have buses out there from 4 or 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. So any time of the day, they could be walking to use the restroom. So one of the benefits of this project is to establish a central location for operator breaks, restroom facilities, and so on. So in terms of the existing conditions, what you're looking at here is a map of Western downtown. And all of those red spaces that you see are areas that are dedicated to bus layover spots. And this is no passenger pickup or drop off. It's simply for the buses to come in, terminate their inbound route, and wait to begin their outbound route while the operator takes a break. That picture that you see there is a bus laying over at B Street and India, and it's in front of a business, Downtown Works. We've actually had meetings with them. They want more parking space for their business. Right now, that's dedicated as a bus layover facility. You see another bus in the background there. That's on the next block. And you see from the map, we have 4 consecutive blocks on B Street that are dedicated to bus layover locations, and then also on Union and A Street. So one of the benefits would be getting most of these buses off of the curbside and into a layover facility. The other benefit is, you see where the buses can lay over. Operators are operating those buses. They have to walk to the proposed location that you see here to access the restroom. So that's where I mentioned that operators have to walk to the restroom 2 or 3 blocks at any time of day or night. And this is the current look of what that area looks like right now. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Omar, and he's going to talk about the current project effort.
Thank you, Brent. SANDAG, is focused on initially acquiring the properties for the entire block. And right now, based on our board direction and based on our understanding of the priority of the project. We are, as Brent mentioned, we're refocused on taking the property that we currently own and repurposing that and as efficiently, as quickly as possible, getting those buses off the street. So right now, you're looking at a property map. There are approximately, we have acquired 6 of the parcels, or 4 of the 6 parcels, I'm sorry, and those are the blue rectangles. And so that's where we're going to focus our development efforts. So some of the site conditions, if you're looking at the upper left photo, that's the northeast corner of the site in the parking lot that SANDAG currently owns. It's adjacent to the existing buildings that you see the backside of the buildings there. And just one thing to note is the constraint there is that we are, about a half a story or a story above the buildings that are to the backs of those buildings there. In the middle top picture is also that northeast corner. It's a little bit hard to see in the photo, but there's a significant grade break in that area. And so, having buses traverse through there, we'll have to make sure that that's properly graded and there's the right slopes there. It's just another constraint. And then on the upper right corner, you'll see a photo of some curbs that are along the line there. Again, these are some of the constraints of the site. And lastly, the bottom left, there's some slope paving, which are split the 2 sites where there's significant grade breaks. So when you're thinking about parking buses here and moving buses through these areas, these are areas that need to be regraded. Nothing that we can't solve from an engineering perspective, just kind of want to outline some of the constraints of the site. So as I mentioned earlier, we procured a consultant to help us lay out the properties in terms of how we can best use it. And on the right, there's some concepts that were initially done. Our consultants got on board just recently, and we're working with MTS in the city to see what the best use of the site is. There's a lot of different ways we can develop it. And we're trying to get as many buses as we can on site with the land that we have. So, there's some effort that's going on there. Obviously, this will all be in close coordination with MTS and operations. This is fresh off the press. So we just have developed, this is one of the, I think we have 4 concepts. And so what you see here is a potential site layout. On the top is A Street, and on the left side is State Street, on the right side Union, and the bottom's B Street. And so buses in this scenario would enter on A Street, then we'd build a new driveway, and they would traverse down to the south and exit on B Street. And so what you see here is 2 drive aisles. You see approximately 11 buses, which would be a mix of coaches and Arctics. In the upper right corner would be a couple spaces for staff parking. There would be some restroom facilities and a trailer, so kind of an area to take breaks, like Brent mentioned. This next alternative is another variation of what you saw before. Again, buses entering on A, exiting on B Street. Instead, in this scenario, we can fill 12 buses of coaches and Arctics. They'll go down the center aisle. Again, that northeast or the upper right corner would be that area for breaks and restrooms and whatnot. So, in this scenario, like Brent mentioned earlier, we're taking all the buses that we're parking in the area and putting the majority of them on the site here. So as far as project schedule is concerned, like I mentioned before, we got a consultant on board, and we're kicking off our initial getting all the utilities and all the constraints figured out. We're in the middle of developing a feasibility study and a project report. The PSR is a project study report and a PR is a project report. So those are documents to kind of show the alternatives that we're analyzing and which ones we'd like to push forward. This will all be in coordination with MTS and the city to make sure that we're meeting the applicable standards and we're really using the site as best as possible. We will finalize the feasibility study in the fall, and we will finalize the project study report in the winter. And also we want to make sure that anything that we develop, we have environmental clearance on it. It's got some limitations as far as how deep we can dig and some other things. So we're going to cross-check whatever that preferred alternative is versus the environmental document and make sure that that's consistent. If we need to do additional environmental work, we will develop that once we know what the final alternative is. And from there, we'll move into the design phase. So that's where we'll do the final design, get the plans ready for construction, and get that project ready to go out for construction. Those future phases, design, we need to get permits from the city because this is in the city of San Diego. Anticipate about 18 months plus or minus, depending on when, depending on the design alternative and depending on the review cycles with the city as far as getting out to construction, I think is the rough timeline that we're looking at. But there'll be more on that as we know what our final product is. So again, next steps, continue to work with stakeholders like MTS and the city to finalize our feasibility study. That project study report is really important to document all the decisions made and the basis of the design, and to look at any environmental impacts to make sure we fit with the current environmental clearance we have, or if we have to do anything additional. And then we finalize that project study and the environmental clearances, then we move forward into final design and construction. So with that, I'll open up for any questions.
Thank you very much. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comments, Chair.
All right. Well, I will kick off our board conversation. As the council member who represents downtown, I want to thank SANDAG, thank MTS for prioritizing this. Certainly, this will help to improve the safety and comfort of our operators, free up curb space for people who are patronizing businesses downtown. It'll be better for street conditions, not to have those buses on the streets for sitting there for extended periods of time. I appreciate the stakeholder engagement that you described. Has that involved speaking with some of the surrounding property owners yet to get a sense of any potential impacts that they might be thinking of that we haven't thought of yet? Or tell me what's been done in that regard, if anything.
Yeah, not at the moment right now, because we're just getting those first concepts in. We want to have an idea of what we want to put forth, but we certainly are looking forward to reaching out to the community to get any input from them.
Okay, so you'll make a point of doing that and making sure that they're aware of what the proposal is and they know that area well. So if there's any challenges that they foresee, they can communicate those to us.
Correct. I will also add that MTS has met with a lot of these businesses. They've proactively reached out, complaining about the buses taking up curb space, and we've met with them and talked to them about this project coming up. So I think there is some awareness of the project, even without the official outreach starting yet.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's go to Director Ela Rivera.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Is there a list of the stakeholders that have been engaged?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, is that something that could be provided to the board just so that we have an opportunity to?
And we can find a list of the businesses that have reached out to us and we've talked with.
I don't just mean the businesses though. So wanting to make sure our workers, the impacted workers, knowing who is being included as stakeholders helps us. Obviously, the chair has the best sense as this is a neighborhood that he represents, but any potential blind spots in terms of folks who could be impacted or supportive of this and should be included in the conversation, that would just be useful to know, in the most comprehensive way possible, who is a stakeholder in conversations like this.
Thank you, Director Ela Rivera. Director Moreno.
Thank you for the presentation. I think this is an amazing project. Obviously, restrooms, break facilities, parking for our buses. Another stakeholder group that I would like to add is our bus drivers. Hopefully we can get their input and see what it is they need in this conversation. Also, this location, are there going to be buses charged here or no? There's no
Not
charging.
the current plan, no.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the timeline. I always appreciate seeing the timeline. Can you talk more about the funding though?
Yeah, we currently are funded for the project. Like I said, these are early days, but we're anticipating a construction cost in the range of $5 or $6 million. We have funding, FTA funding for that money. We also have funding in the budget. You'll probably see some additional funding, but some of that money is programmed for right-of-way acquisition as well, as we want to pursue additional acquisitions in that area. But nonetheless, we are funded for the interim phase of this project.
For the interim phase, and I see a number here of 66.98 million.
Yes.
For this, and you said 5 is for the actual construction?
Yeah, because remember, this was part of a larger effort to acquire the entire block and potentially look at redeveloping that. And since that was taking longer than we had liked, we have refocused to just do this interim project. So the 5 million is the interim project. We want to do something that services MTS, but also is reasonably, priced, right? And then also continue to look at the future opportunities and see if there's desire to pursue more development in that area.
The full project will accommodate somewhere 16 to 18 buses. The interim would be somewhere like 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. So it doesn't meet the full need of what we have, but it helps us get there and we can take advantage of what we have for now.
I think we would benefit from seeing a breakdown of the funding. FTA was mentioned as a funding mechanism. I don't know if our capital improvement project earmarked money is funding this project as well. So it would be good if we could have a follow-up just to see. So no advocacy on this one, it sounds like. We got all the money.
Yes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Moreno. Understanding that this is an interim project, what is the latest on the long-term vision for this parcel?
Yeah, the long-term vision, right now, we have a planning study that's ongoing. They're looking at a lot of different scenarios as far as how much development they would like to do, how high, what type of mixed use that could be, doing some financial feasibility and market sounding, things of that effort. That is being led by a separate group. It's a separate effort, and it's funded under a different bucket of money. But ultimately, that study, as I understand it, is going to be wrapping up, I believe in the next 6 months or so. So once that's complete, then we can coordinate with MTS in terms of socializing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of my goals for downtown as the council member is to have fewer parking lots and more housing. At the same time, so I appreciate the attention to that. At the same time, if that's the direction we go, we are going to also need to accommodate our bus drivers and buses in some other different configuration. So look forward to the robust conversations to come on that. In the meantime, please do keep us updated on outreach to the bus drivers, the surrounding property owners, and any other stakeholders that are impacted by this. We appreciate the update. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item number 7. That is an informational update on the 12th and Imperial Transit Center Rehabilitation Project. Heather Fury is going to provide this presentation. Feel free to get settled in and go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Good morning. I'm Heather Fury, Senior Director of Capital Projects at MTS, and here to talk to you about this project that's happening right downstairs. We're all in the Mills building, kind of right in the middle of this picture of the 12th and Imperial Transit Center area. If we zoom in, the Transit Center is the closest nexus for the orange, blue, and green line trolleys. And we have 4 different bus lines that run through this area. So it's a pretty busy connection point for many of our riders. And the National Avenue property immediately to the right of the Mills building is the main area we're going to be talking about as we talk about expanding our transit center downstairs. Today, our transit center is shown on the left in photo, but it's a little easier to see what we're talking about on the right. You can see the orange and blue line trolleys running under the Mills building. The green line trolley is off to the left of the diagram. And there are 4 bus stops in our existing transit center, just west of 13th Street, and then 2 more on National Avenue, and 2 bus layover locations on 14th Street. These aren't active bus stops, but are layovers, similar to what Brent and the SANDAG team were just showing you for a downtown area. We really would like to expand our facilities in this area. We've got all 3 trolley lines with about 31,000 average weekday trolley trip ends here, meaning these passengers are coming to this location to get on a bus or get onto the trolley, and 4 major bus routes. With only 4 of our bus stops on MTS property, we don't have shelters and the amenities we'd like for our customers, VMS signs out on the streets. So we'd like to really increase the size of the facilities we have downstairs. The goals of the transit center expansion are to reconfigure the traffic flow in the area slightly, expand the platforms and the number of bus bays, make some improvements to our stormwater facilities. There's a history of flooding downstairs, and to create a developable pad for a future transit-oriented development project. Pretty lofty goals for a small area. We've been working on this project for quite a while. Work started a little over 4 years ago in 2022 when we submitted a grant to the state Transit and Intercity Rail Program to seek funds for the project. That was awarded in the fall of 2022. In 2023, we started collaborating with the San Diego Foundation on a potential transit-oriented development project downstairs. In late 23 and early 24, this board awarded a design contract to Dock and Engineering to help us get the concept for expanding the transit center from the cartoons we were looking at into actual engineering plans. And in March of 25, we did our first submittal to the city of San Diego for street vacation, and also sending the city our first preliminary plans for the reconfiguration of the site. Later in 25, this board approved a development and disposition agreement with San Diego Foundation and Cypress Equities. And we also submitted a second street vacation package to the city, which incorporated their previous comments. And in December of last year, we submitted 100% design package to the city for the transit center. So far this year, we have given our third submittal back for the street vacation. And recently with DSD, they have agreed to allow us to process the street vacation in concert or in parallel with the transit center design so that both of those 2 separate city processes could occur at the same time rather than in series, saving us a little bit of time. So the diagram on the right shows you the final concept that we are working with for the transit center. Instead of 4 off-street bus bays, this will have 12 off-street bus bays with 1 additional bus bay on Imperial Avenue. At the very south end or the bottom of the diagram, there's going to be an egress path platform for the Orange Line. So if I'm connecting from an Orange Line train to go north or south on the Blue Line, and the Blue Line is in the station at the Mills building, I'll be able to hop off the Orange Line and head around the corner to connect to that Blue Line rather than having to wait another 7.5 minutes for the next Blue Line train. There will be a new intersection at Commercial and National and 14th. It's going to be a 5-way intersection, which will control bus movements in and out of the transit center. 14th Street will be converted to a 2-way street. Today, it's a 1-way street going northbound. And National Avenue will continue to the southeast of this image. But today, National Avenue actually bisects that future parcel that's kind of grayed out. The next couple images will make that a little more clear. We're going to have some pedestrian crosswalks in the transit center to kind of help orient customers a little more and make it easier for our bus drivers to move through the transit center. We have a dedicated bus-only left turn lane on Imperial, but still maintaining the number of lanes on Imperial Avenue. We think this will help during special events. We've done a lot of work to study the stormwater improvements in this area. We think this project will have some improvements, but given that we're at one of the lowest points of downtown and adjacent to the bay, I don't think we're going to be able to fix everything. And again, one goal is to optimize the land use downtown after this project and have a TOD parcel that's available for development. So how do we bring two parcels together and make this happen? As I said, we've started more than 4 years ago getting this all together. MTS currently owns the two triangle parcels that National Avenue bisects. And before we could start the street vacation process, we needed to acquire the residual land rights to the streets in between those two parcels. I think a couple of years ago, there was a very detailed presentation to the board on how all that ownership from the early 1900s worked its way through the system. And so those were obtained by eminent domain. We're working with the city on a street vacation. That's a process that will ultimately culminate in a city council agenda item. We don't yet have a date for going to the city council for this project, but we're hoping it would be sometime in 2026. There are a number of utilities as under many of our city streets under the streets in National Avenue. And when a street is vacated, the city can exercise its rights under the franchise agreement to have those utilities relocated at the utility owner's cost or the franchisee's cost. That will be an important aspect of getting this project and being able to make this project happen. MTS is expecting to pay the costs to relocate the city-owned utilities that are impacted by the project. I should have mentioned the area highlighted in yellow, kind of overlaid on the transit center project, it is intended to show the limits of the street vacation. So that is property that MTS is seeking to acquire through this vacation process with the city. So we're working through the plan reviews and the new street configurations with the city pretty actively and are meeting with them regularly. This is another exhibit of the same area, again, showing even more of the utilities that are in the downtown area. The light blue are the city stormwater facilities. And I think green is gas. There's a number of water lines in the area and electrical distribution lines. So it's quite a busy area. Getting these utilities relocated is on the critical path for the TOD development schedule. Most of the things that are happening with the TOD are fairly quiet until we have a little more certainty on the utility relocations. The funding that kind of go into the funding stack to make these TODs happen requires a lot of certainty on when you're going to start construction. And something like a utility relocation can provide some gray areas that the funding partners aren't real comfortable with, or the developers can't make commitments to funding agencies. So getting these utilities on a meaningful process for each one will help facilitate that portion of this project. Another thing to highlight here is most of the activity is kind of going northwest to southeast, but there is a light blue line that kind of goes the opposite direction or crisscrossing the site. That is a significant drainage easement that runs through the parcels. That is the Schweitzer Creek culvert that actually daylights in the trolley yard and then goes down to the bay. So it carries a substantial amount of water. It's about 10 feet by 5 feet. And over the last couple of years, the development team has been working diligently with city staff. They were hoping to be able to build over that culvert, maybe leave the ground floor open or as a parking facility with lots of access points for that drainage facility. But the city has just determined that building over that facility is not going to be feasible. So the TOD team is looking at how to redesign to build around the culvert, redesign on the site to not build over that drainage culvert. They've looked at relocation and just don't find it to be a feasible option. So that is a challenge. And I would imagine the next time we hear from the San Diego Foundation and Cypress Equities, we'll probably see some footprints that look a little bit different than what they've previously shown this board for that TOD project. This is a real heavy engineering drawing showing some of the bus turn radii that the designers use to make sure the buses can make all these tight corners. Again, this is a separate process, obtaining a permit for this work, separate from the street vacation process. The designers were waiting on comments from development services, but they're currently working on some changes to the OCS poles that run along the south side of the project site, so that we will have clear pedestrian walkways for both the Orange Line egress platform and the bus bays down at that south portion of the site. We've also been working with the California Public Utilities Commission and the City of San Diego on the changes to the intersection at 14th and Commercial and National. Any changes we make to an intersection have to go through the CPUC, and it's a city signaled facility. So obviously we're working closely with them. For project cost, MTS was awarded $10.92 million back in late 2022 for this project from the Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program, TIRCP, as we say locally, which requires a $2.73 million match from MTS. So that's $13.6 million in total toward this project. We also teamed up with the Strategic Growth Council and received a grant for $1.7 million. So of our current budget of $14.4 million, much of those dollars are grant dollars. We're estimating the total cost of this project to be $24 million. And the additional funding, a little under $10 million that's needed, would go toward construction, city management fees, and construction, city permit fees, excuse me, and construction management services. And we anticipate requesting those budgets or those funds during the CIP budgeting process for FY28 and FY29. In terms of next steps, we're going to continue working diligently with the city DSD department on similar types of projects. We've had a multi-submittal process going through multiple submittals. We've turned our first in. I would imagine we would have up to 3 before we would likely get to a point where the city is ready to issue a permit. I'm anticipating spring or summer of next year for that process. That's me based on experience on similar projects. So hopefully that date will hold. Once we do have some certainty that we are going to obtain a permit, the goal would be to put the engineering plans out on the street to obtain competitive construction bids. And then 6 months after, that's about a 6-month process. So if we were to receive a permit in late summer of 27, I hope we would be starting construction in early 28. I think it's about a 12 to 18 month construction process for the transit center. We separately will continue working through the street vacation process with the city. Again, we're hoping for a city council meeting sometime in 2026. I would imagine it would be very late. If not, then 2027. We've started coordination with the utility companies that are affected by the project downstairs, and we'll keep coordinating with the San Diego Foundation development team. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that update. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comments, Chair.
Okay, let's open committee member discussion on this item. It's an informational item, so no motion is necessary. We'll start our conversation with Director Hilo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation here and the update on this. Obviously, a pretty badly needed rehabilitation of the transit center. I'm curious if any consideration was given to using this as an opportunity to close this station in terms of when I mean close, I don't mean like not have it anymore. I mean like close it for riders only. Was that given any thought?
we are currently looking at the whole system and how to do that for the whole system. So we'll definitely evaluate this station in the context of that whole system study. But when we started this project 4 years ago, that wasn't a real high part of the list of requirements for the project.
Right.
And I would just add, our system has kind of two types of when you pay your fare.
Mhm.
So for trolley, you're supposed to have paid your fare when you're on the platform. So when we do fare checks, we not only check on the vehicle, but in the station. When you're on the bus, you don't pay until you board the bus.
Right.
So like in the gating analysis that we do, kind of trolley stations would be looked at differently than bus generally. Like I think we'd have to like change our whole operational enforcement process, which we could still open, but that normally we don't. We do have security that try to make sure you're actively waiting for a bus. You can't just loiter all day long, even at like a bus transit center, but you are allowed to wait and not have paid your fare while you're waiting for your bus to arrive.
Right. I'm not going to pretend like I can like sketch this out on the fly here. It's a conversation at least 2 years ago brought up as so some of the potential pros and cons, 31,000 exits, I think, a day. Given the considerations that we have about revenue, about folks not paying fares, we've had the at least a little bit of the conversation about the pros and cons of that. I'm just curious as to whether or not it was assessed. I could think of a few ways that someone could access a bus, even if a particular station is closed. But next question, in the design and the conversations about what this will ultimately result in, has there been any additional consideration given to the ongoing conversations with San Diego Community Power or some of our conversations around non-fare revenue and how to maximize this as an opportunity to generate non-fare revenue?
Well, this is a site for joint development for housing.
Right, but is that the only thing that we can generate non-fare revenue with? Is there, or can we generate energy savings? I'm just asking if that's been part of the analysis. That was part of the analysis that was done as this design was created.
I mean, I don't think that we've specifically like looked at like right now at these stations, the way that we generate non-fare revenue is through advertising panels or retail kiosks. Since we already have the Amart convenience store that's right here at 12th and Imperial, we didn't look into trying to make sure that we had space for that on the platforms. Instead, we were trying to maximize the number of bus bays that we could fit in, the pedestrian kind of queuing, and then the development parcel. You know, we have looked at, are there ground floor activities that could be done as part of the TOD? I don't know how much revenue they would generate because some of the concepts have been looking at like a childcare facility. And I know that those are costly, you know, to operate. And so I don't know how much actual like lease revenue you would get from those that year. That's still kind of in process and analysis of what would that final design include. I think we obviously would look to optimize additional advertising opportunities like in the ad panels, digital boards. We do have a large digital kiosk that is going to be installed just outside of this footprint, kind of in between.
It's right next to it.
Right, kind of the top bus bay that's at the top of there, like right there on the trolley platform. We are in the process of, you know, issuing right of entry permit for a large format digital kiosk that will generate over $100,000 a year in revenue, you know, plus then in minimum annual guarantees, but then there will be additional advertising percentage share that we get.
And for instance, down at our Palm Avenue station, the joint development, the housing developer is contemplating putting up solar all around the shell of the building to maximize electric generation. And perhaps the developer on this site, once we get to that level of design, might be able to do that as well.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I just I appreciate all that. And as we're moving forward, I just think it's going to be really important for us to ensure that we're incorporating as much thought as possible into these additional goals that the board has expressed. Generating non-fair revenue being one of them. Obviously, housing's been important, and I'm very appreciative of the housing that we've built. Access to restrooms. There's and just making sure that we are not trying to bake those things in after the fact, but being as thoughtful as possible about making sure that design and the entire process is inclusive of these other goals that are important to us. So again, I think this is really important. I'm glad that it's moving along, and I want to make sure that it is as impactful as it can possibly be. And given the number of riders who move, who utilize this stop, let's not make sure, and its proximity to Petco Park, housing that's being built, et cetera, et cetera. Let's make sure that we don't look back at this 10 years from now, 15 years from now and say, this is really nice. It's much nicer than it was there, but it's also not everything that it could have been. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Elo Rivera. Let's go to Director Moreno.
Thank you for the presentation, Heather. And also congratulations on getting the TCC funding. My district also was awarded TCC funding, and we were able to get, with obviously the help of EHC, we were able to get Boston Avenue Linear Park. So awesome. Kudos to you guys. Thank you for staying on this. So what is the white part? Did I hear housing? That
is the goal, to create a parcel that could be developed. And our design team spent a lot of time trying to maximize that parcel so that it was the largest available, because that is an opportunity for other revenue creating activities in that space.
And that's the location that the board approved a DDA with the San Diego Foundation and Cypress Equities for in October.
Thank you for reminding me. Thank you. And I think it's important, especially when we're looking in the downtown or central area of San Diego, whether it's D3 or D8 or that's about it, right? It's good to think about and to keep in consideration. It's not just about land use, but it's about what essentially is going to go up, because it needs to go up. So the where we're seeing the buses, that has to be open air.
That is the plan for the bus facility.
But there isn't a law that stipulates that has to be open air. Like potentially, as my colleague was mentioning, we can potentially in the future build something up there.
So when we had San Diego Foundation worked with us on this, they did a full RFI, or I forget what the term at the time, but to see, could we maximize the whole use of it? Could we put a platform over it? And so there's no requirement that we don't.
Okay.
This was really what that national search and all of their research with KPMG, et cetera, came up with as the most viable option, but it does not preclude some future additional growth.
Thank you for explaining that. And does this, and you said transit center, but it really just sounds like a bus center. Anyways, what were the scope of work we're looking at for this particular project? I understand that for funding and for other things, it is good to tie in the existing rail line that we have next to it, but it's not like we're going to change the rail line, or we're going to, not that I'm asking you to do that, but this is essentially for buses. And so, which leads to my question, does this include bathrooms and break rooms for our staff?
So this is for buses. I did not identify, we do have identified areas for TNCs or drop-off pickup type of activities, taxi stands. In addition, there are bike parking facilities and a bike repair facility. The restrooms are at 12th and Imperial inside the Mills building today. So we haven't replicated that functionality as part of the project.
So a bus driver would be able to leave the bus, walk over to the transit station to hear the mills, grab a snack, go to the bathroom, all that good stuff? Or no, this is a place where it's just go?
I'm not
Pick up and
familiar
go.
with the bus schedule
Okay.
and how that timing would work,
Okay.
but those facilities are here.
Okay, wonderful.
For the buses that currently are a layover on 14th Street, those generally then that layover gives the bus operator time for a break, but the buses that are in the middle of their route, that's not something the bus driver would do at that point in their route.
Here, the bus driver will never leave the bus.
It depends because there are 2 layover routes where, like we were talking about for the downtown layover, they either take their break or
Okay.
they,
So
there are a couple buses right now that do that. And so those 2 buses, those operators would have time to, and that's what they do right now. Right now they park along 14th Street. And so they would just be parking closer to the building.
So yes, there will be 2 facilities here where bus drivers can relax. Stop the bus.
Well, yes, there will be 2 bus bays.
2 bus bays, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, we're
Sorry.
replacing those bus bays
Okay,
would be
there will be
incorporated
2 bus
inside
bays.
the
Thank
site.
you. And then also in regards to funding, you stipulated that we were going to look for $10 million from our capital improvement projects for fiscal year 20. You didn't say capital improvement projects, you said fiscal year 28 and 29. Can staff clarify if those are earmarked? They're not. They're
No.
not part of the, you didn't call them earmarked. You said something else. What did you
Well,
say?
when we went after and got awarded a grant, the cost to construct was a lot lower than what and the permitting fees and all that stuff. So our newest estimate is that it will cost us more than what we had originally thought. And so
Absolutely.
now we will have to incorporate that each year into the future capital improvement program.
Got you.
And so that would be existing funds such as Transportation Development Act, or if we were able to use some of our federal funds, and this is a federalized project, correct? Oh, it's not.
It is
Okay.
not currently.
So to federalize the project would not be impossible. So we could end up seeing that as well. If there
Federalize
does
the project, you said?
federalize, meaning you have to complete various requirements that
Like
the
a
federal
NEPA?
government has in addition to stuff that the state might
A
have.
NEPA? Is that what one of the requirements would be?
Yes, the
Okay.
feds do have separate requirements. NEPA is correct versus CEQA, which is the California
State, yeah.
Environmental. I think
Which would make it longer because they would have to approve it.
I think because it is a transportation project, it would likely pass through NEPA as well. I'd have to go back and look. We may have already certified it environmentally for federal. I think the bigger change is the requirements for procurement. So for federal projects, the paperwork and the things that go into the contract with the construction company are different, or add another layer, I'll say, to the regulations from what the state requires. And that's the same for design. So at the start of design, we did not federalize that design contract. But I don't think that means we couldn't federalize the construction portion of the contract.
Okay, so going back to my question that I was asking regarding the budget and funds that have been earmarked, this project has not been earmarked within our capital improvement projects.
The last 10 million has not. So when the third bullet point says the current budget is 14.4 million.
That's all grants.
I sort of think about it as that 14.4 million is in a savings account right now for this project. But we believe that we will need 24 million to build it. So we're currently short 9.6 million. So as part of the competitive CIP budget process that we go through annually, my team will have to advocate for this project over the next few years to close that funding gap of 9.6.
Well, we hope you don't, because we hope to get some state and federal funding, right? That the conversation
be
we were
great.
having earlier.
Yes, that would be
now that we
wonderful.
know, Chair Whipper, do your thing at the state. and get us some money, right? Thank you for, I am putting you on the spot. This is awesome. Kudos to staff for all the good work. I know this is very much needed. And so looking forward to advocating for this and to adding it to our projects that we are going to zero in on in the advocacy proposal.
Thank you, Director Moreno. Thank you very much for this update. I will look forward to doing my thing to help to move it forward. And this goes to precisely what I was saying in the last item. It's a great example of replacing vacant lots with housing, and even better housing that is adjacent to transit. So thank you for all of your work on this. I know it's an incredibly complex project considering everything that's under the ground and around there. Appreciate all the work on it. It'll be a huge benefit to both the agency and downtown when we get this done. So thank you. All right, item 8 is a review of next week's board agenda. Any questions on the draft agenda? Well, it's actually not next week. It's in a couple of weeks this month. So any questions on the draft agenda for later this month?
We haven't put the item on the fair freeze program, the life program on the agenda, but if you would like us to bring it to the full board, we can. Otherwise, we'll just plan on having an update in September.
Okay, September's probably fine. So we'll look forward to that then. All right. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Goebel.
I noticed for the first time in 3 years, the chair won't be at a board meeting. Fearing a coup, I see the agenda is unusually light with just 2 discussion items. We had 3. We knocked one of those off today, so we will have more time for bunco at that meeting. And certainly we'll miss you in a couple of weeks, but look forward to a quick meeting.
And I will mention that just based on preliminary indications, we will be tight on a quorum. So if any of you have not already told us that you won't be there, please do.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goebel. All right, let's move to, and thank you in advance for stepping up and chairing this month's meeting. Let's move to staff or committee member communications. I'm going to kick this off. I'd like to provide a brief update on 2 major community events where MTS is going to have a significant presence this month: San Diego Pride and Comic-Con. MTS is proud to once again support San Diego Pride. It's one of the region's largest and most visible celebrations. As all of us here know, it's got an estimated 250,000 attendees each year that are expected throughout the weekend. And MTS is encouraging residents and visitors to take transit to the festivities. That'll help to reduce congestion and parking demand and will help to provide a safe and convenient way to travel to Pride events. We're also excited that MTS will have a bus and employees participating in the Pride Parade again this year. The parade is this coming Saturday, July 18th. And it demonstrates our commitment to inclusion and respect and service to all members of our community. So great way to celebrate the diversity of both our workforce and the riders that we serve every day. Comic-Con is also right around the corner. MTS is once again going to play a critical role in moving hundreds of thousands of attendees to and from downtown. To accommodate that increased demand, MTS is going to operate expanded trolley service, and that will include the dedicated special event line. It will provide service every 15 minutes between the Balboa Avenue Transit Center and the 12th and Imperial Transit Center throughout the convention. In addition, we have several exciting activations that are planned. They will enhance the Comic-Con experience while generating valuable non-fare revenue for the agency. This year, 45 trolleys are going to be fully wrapped with Comic-Con related advertising and promotional partnerships that will create a highly visible presence across the system, generate additional revenue for the agency. We're also going to be hosting Disney's special activation at the Gaslamp Quarter Station, transforming one of our most prominent stations into a destination for attendees. Should be a lot of fun. MTS is also going to offer special commemorative Comic-Con pins that have become popular collectibles and help strengthen engagement with riders and fans. We're especially excited this year marks a first for MTS. Magic the Gathering is going to serve as the inaugural sponsor of our special event line. That partnership demonstrates the growing interest for major brands in leveraging MTS assets and audience reach during one of San Diego's premier events. Collectively, these partnerships and activations are expected to generate even more non-fare revenue than in previous years, helping us to maximize the value of our assets while supporting the transit services that make Comic-Con possible. And finally, I'd just like to invite board members to attend our Comic-Con Transit Service Press Conference. That's scheduled for Tuesday, July 21st at 11 o'clock. Tuesday, July 21st at 11 o'clock. If anybody can make it there, it'll be at the Gaslamp Quarter Station. The event will highlight our service enhancements, community partnerships, and the critical role that MTS plays in ensuring the success of Comic-Con. So if you're available and interested, it would be great to have you at this kickoff event. Any other staff or committee member communications? All right. We have one closed session item this morning. It is a public employee performance evaluation, conference with labor negotiators for the chief executive officer. Clerk, do we have any public comment on the closed session item?
We have no public comments, Chair.
All right. The executive committee's next meeting date will be September 10th at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we will now move into closed session.
Reporting out of closed session, agenda item number 12, closed session conference with labor negotiators and public employee performance evaluation. The executive committee has continued this item to a date in September.
Meeting has adjourned at 12:29 p.m.